Justin. Justin, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but he's the Chief Customer Officer for SecureLink. Justin, you there?
I'm here.
All right. Well, you've got the stage.
Great. Thanks very much. So we're kind of short on time, so I'll do the more abridged presentation here, but we spent some time doing a fair amount of market research around specifically third-party remote access to enterprise systems focused largely on healthcare. So as there's interest, feel free, you'll have my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me for more information. In a nutshell, SecureLink is designed to basically be the point in the middle, ensuring that third parties are able to maximize the control, audit, and identity management around all of their third parties that are remotely accessing their network, as well as endeavoring to maximize the efficiency to connect to their customers. And I know security and efficiency are always kind of doing battle in the marketplace. And so that's sort of our mission, to maximize security on one end while hopefully increasing efficiency on the vendor side. I've been with SecureLink for 15 years, and I work with both our healthcare customers as well as our technology vendors on any given day to help make sure they're deriving the most value from our solutions. I'm going to try to share my screen here. So I'll just kind of go quickly through this PowerPoint presentation here and hopefully leave a fair amount of time for questions as well. So specifically, what we hear from our customers as far as kind of common goals around vendor privileged access to networks. Many of them want to increase audit for remote sessions. A lot of times when you need to gather the, let's say in some kind of risk assessment, and you need to prove how many vendors have accessed privileged networks over a 30-day period or a 12-month period, that can involve digging through firewall logs, system event logs, and can be very cumbersome. And that's before even trying to actually correlate maybe usernames to actual individuals or companies. Additionally, restricting access to privileged systems. A lot of times, VPNs can grant access to more on a network level than perhaps the vendor needs. Maybe a vendor only has 2 servers, but by default, the VPN allows access to an entire network, subnet or something like that. And then desktop sharing solutions are very difficult to manage centrally and can kind of be granted ad hoc, which can provide some challenges as well. And then individually identifying remote users. Our research showed that the average organization has 67 unique vendors who might need access on any given occasion. And so if you maybe give each of those vendors an average of 10 employees, you're talking, even with that kind of average example, almost 700 distinct individuals who might need to be either granted a unique account in Active Directory and then managed individually by some team on your end, or you run the risk of creating those shared accounts, which removes a lot of the ability to actually identify who's coming in and significantly can increase the security risk in your organization. And of course, overall in the industry, third-party remote access is on the rise. 97% of breaches that involve stolen credentials were attributed to third parties. And of course, we see this in the news more and more, where some kind of third party activity is tied to a cybersecurity incident. And Booz Allen actually called third party remote access the #1 risk facing organizations. So real quick about SecureLink, we're based in Austin, Texas, and all we do, we've been around since 2003, and as I mentioned, all we do is help technology organizations maximize their efficiency connecting to customers while helping those same customers maximize their security. We're in multiple industries. Actually, about 2/3 of our customer base is in healthcare, but we have organizations all over the map. 6 out of the top 12 HCI technology vendors leverage SecureLink as their standard for remote access, and 3 of the top 5 health systems also leverage SecureLink as their standard for vendor remote access into their network. So a lot of times, in addition to providing a technology solution, we're asked for our best practices as far as actually how to set up workflows and roles and strategies across the vendor remote access lifecycle, where you're provisioning, onboarding, managing day-to-day access, offboarding, etc. And we provide, along with our product, a suite of services, including assistance cataloging vendors. So finally, actually getting that list. Who are our active vendors? What do they need access to? Are they still valid? What's their criticality of access, etc. With best practices for, should this be help desk? Should this be IT? Should we have a centralized role, or should we delegate some of the responsibility to application owners? We cover each of that for all of the organizations. Then we have a dedicated vendor onboarding team. So once we have that list, we will actually take the active role to the degree that you want us to in reaching out to vendors, answering their questions, and helping them get connectivity to the solution. And all of this, it comes with a full engagement report that outlines any process changes that we've implemented or suggested, and then a detailed action plan for success going forward. At SecureLink, we are a license on a subscription model, so we really do think of ourselves as your dedicated partner for third-party remote access. And it's to the degree that you guys were talking about high trust before. There's a lot of different aspects to this, and certainly a risk framework is very important. But when it comes then to implementing it, that's where a lot of times organizations are faced with, okay, great, there's all of this work that needs to be done to maximize our compliance. Do we hire more people, or is there a way to use technology to automate some of those things? And that's where a lot of times we'll come in. So briefly, kind of from a features and functionality standpoint, SecureLink provides unique accounts for all individuals with dual factor authentication built in to the solution. And I'm going to break this down into 3 pieces: that identify, control, and audit access. And we can restrict access by source network control. So you always know that the vendors are the individual who they say they are. Dual factor authentication is built in without needing to integrate with some other solution that you may or may not have in place. And you always know the vendors are coming in from their approved corporate networks. Access is segmented into trusted zones on a least privileged model. So that means that when you create this vendor object and you define what they should have access to, you're allowing access basically at the network port level, instead of having to have access granted to everything by default and then restrict by firewall rules or network changes, etc. Access is then available only to your rules. So you can enable access 24/7 for vendors who may need it. You can have it open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, until 12 o'clock tonight. And this can be delegated to the application owners who actually know what access the vendors need, rather than having some central IT function necessarily do it. It's up to you. You can provision who the vendors are and what the network access is that they need, while then letting someone else turn that access on and off as needed, only for the vendors they have relationships with. And we have a built-in Credential Vault. Think of it like a PAM Lite, if you will, where the credentials are securely stored and hidden from your vendors. So when a vendor logs in, they'll see this few hosts that they have access to, the protocols you've published for them, and they'll be able to click, let's say, on an RDP connection and be automatically logged in without ever knowing the privileged accounts that they would need, which is easier for them. They don't have to go look it up somewhere, but of course, it closes a potential security risk for our customers. And finally, every connection is associated with a high-definition audit trail. So that includes some basic information that's always important: the name, the company, start and end times, durations, etc. Some contextual information, which can be really helpful when you're doing more forensics. That is, why did they need to connect? What was the case number? What was the reason for connecting? And then actually what happened. So the person connecting, what they did, to what host. And we even take things a step further for many protocols by recording a movie of remote desktop sessions, the file transfer commands, and tracking at the command level SSH and telnet, so those Unix-based sessions as well. And there's nothing more satisfying I have heard than showing a vendor a movie of them upgrading the wrong system after they have told you that there's no way they could have done that. So that's kind of a brief overview of SecureLink as far as the problem we endeavor to solve, and some of the features and functionality. I know we didn't get into infrastructure and product demos and things, but of course we're happy to talk individually or at a follow-up session with more of that. But I did want to leave some time for questions. So any questions you guys might have, I'm happy to answer them.
Justin, this is Greg Peebles. I'm with the St. Elizabeth Healthcare here in Northern Kentucky. And I'm going to go ahead and admit my ignorance here, but we are a SecureLink user. However,
okay,
I haven't put it on my priority list to kind of understand it in my year that I've been here. So I presume that each institution should have an administrator that manages that, and then that person or delegates could do kind of periodic, assessments or audits of activity. Can this information ever be sent to a security SIM logging solution? A couple of questions in there.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll kind of expound on that a little bit and talk a little bit about the SecureLink universe, if you will. So we actually have 4 types of potential users with SecureLink. We have technology vendors who purchase SecureLink to standardize across all of their customers. Are our customer and pay a license to do that. They may then roll out to maybe 1,000 customers, all of whom have a lot of audit and control, but only for that vendor. Those customers are not our customers. They're users of that or customers of that vendor. So there's probably 50,000 organizations that have and manage a SecureLink connection for one or more vendors. Those organizations, many of them may say, well, this is pretty cool. For this vendor, I get an email when they connect. I can look at movies of their RDP sessions. I can see the name of who's connecting. But these other vendors, I don't get any of that. So they may choose to work with us to then standardize that level of audit, but for their 66 other vendors. And then they may roll out to 67 vendors, 66 of whom are not SecureLink customers, but are merely users. And we probably have 10,000 companies who just use it. And some of those companies may then say, well, this is actually way cooler than dealing with a customer dictated VPN. And they may then engage with us to standardize on their solution. So many of you may have SecureLink in your organization.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the primary driver for our use of it is, and I sometimes get these emails and nobody ever explained to me what what they were for.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's helpful because we don't have it listed as a system that we use or manage. So
right, you probably have it listed as the thing that your vendor is using, which just kind of gets associated with them, which is fine. But to answer your other question, we can export to a SIM. We have ODBC access if you want to run your own granular reports in something else, or you can just have Splunk or something else read that from that SIM to organize it however you'd like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And really quickly, I also want to thank Justin because it wasn't until Tuesday of this week, I shot a message to their CEO, Joe Devine, who I don't have a relationship with, and said, hey, we've got a group of guys that get together, and gals, that get together and talk about security and third-party access management was a concern. Would you guys be willing to step in at the 11th hour and do a quick talk? And they jumped in. So I want to thank Justin and SecureLink for taking the time to do this on such short notice.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any other questions for Justin? I'll go ahead and we go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is Greg. I just wanted to thank him for showing up on short notice, but I wasn't sure if somebody else was jumping in with a question.
So Justin, we got about 2 minutes left. Just really quickly, any best practices, worst practices that you've seen out there that SecureLink has seen, especially in healthcare, but in general, that you'd want to share in the last couple of minutes here?
Yeah, the biggest, what I'm seeing, and I'm not a risk professional or anything, but I do pretend to be one sometimes. It's just difficult as more and more visibility is placed on security with already overburdened organizations trying to, every single additional checkpoint you put in place means more people, more work, et cetera. Especially around identifying individual accounts, which is something we hear a lot, and I think we have a pretty elegant way of handling that by actually, in many cases, integrating with the vendor's Active Directory, so you can kind of outsource vendor management in their trusted directory system, rather than creating the accounts that get disabled every 30 days that you're dealing with, et cetera. So, I would encourage the group to, if there are activities that you're manually looking at, do some investigation in seeing if there are technologies that can automate some of these security practices around access control and individual identity management. We see privileged access solutions do a great job with credential management, but sometimes they don't look at the full gamut of the user creation, the auditing, and the access control. So I'll send apps my full contact information. If anybody has follow-up questions or wants to talk more, we're happy to help.
Well, thanks, Justin. I definitely appreciate your time and a good overview in 20 minutes or less. Well done. And definitely, Mike, thank you as well for your time and preparation and delivery of the HISRT. Valuable information, I think, to the group. We've been wanting to talk about it for at least a year and some change now, and knowing that you've gone through it was extremely valuable. And with that, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll shut it down. But I'd want to remind everyone really quickly two things. One, SecureCon is coming to Cincinnati. If I haven't blown up your inbox enough about it, make sure you take a look at it. SocietyInfoRisk.org. It's a fantastic conference. World-class speakers, a lot of good stuff. And also the last thing is that reminder that we are going to be moving our next meeting to a location a little bit closer to Dayton, so the folks up in Dayton can join us. So with that, we'll everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next month.
Great, thanks, Zach. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.